Giant-sized Spider-Man King's Ransom issue number 1 is the big finale to Nick Spencer's newest Spider-Man arc, a storyline so big and so multifaceted it needed its own special issue. So, let's hop in together and find out how it all shakes out, shall we? As we begin the story, things pick up from where Amazing Spider-Man number 65 left off. Spider-Man is looking for some help from his old New Avengers friends, or is it Defenders friends? Again, that's a bit of an on-running joke in the series to try and help him collect Boomerang. Fred, you'll remember, had sworn revenge on the Kingpin for everything that had happened at his and Peter's shared apartment and was ready to go on one glorious suicide mission if it meant meaning everyone could be safe. The assembled members of the superhero community are obviously a little apprehensive about helping Boomerang because, well, isn't he supposed to be a bad guy? Isn't he supposed to be a jerk? And indeed, Peter agrees he didn't like him when they first met, and yet despite all of that, they've worked together and actually become friends. And now Spidey is begging the rest of the superhero community to see in Boomerang what he sees in him. This story also brings to conclusion a subplot that's been going on pretty much since this Nick Spencer series began, and that is that ever since Kingpin became mayor, he's been trying to drive a wedge between Spider-Man and the rest of the superheroes by making it look like he was giving Peter preferential treatment as Luke Cage and the others say, hey man, how are we to know you didn't have another alien parasite problem, or had Doc Ock take you over, or were Kraven in disguise? Maybe it's you who needs to read your email more often and be a better type of friend, and indeed, this criticism does give Peter pause, what with everything that's been happening with Kindred, with Jonah. Maybe Peter can actually stand to be a better friend. Naturally, the New Avengers were kind of just busting his balls and were going to help him regardless, but still, they gave Peter a much-needed talking to, and he's going to take their words to heart. Now, all this additional superhero muscle means that these guys are going to duke it out with Kingpin's assembled army of gangsters, while Peter goes into the sewers to try and find Fred and the last piece of the Lifeline tablet, the prize that Wilson Fisk has been after all this time. Complicating matters, though, is J. Jonah Jameson. Apparently, he picked now of all times to give a big conference to all the investors for the new Threats and Menaces program. Jonah in this series has actually grown a lot after learning Spider-Man's secret identity and actually made good strides to try and help him as a crime fighter, but unfortunately all this newfound fame and competition with the Daily Bugle has woken up a lot of Jonah's more negative attributes. Jonah unveils his new Pro Spider Slayer program, wherein fans of Threats and Menaces won't just be able to watch the action through the Spider-Man, they can actually get involved if they want by piloting their own robot. The mechs are built to be non-lethal, which is good, but unfortunately because they are piloted from people by the internet, eventually they stop fighting the bad guys altogether and start fighting each other, making it a big old embarrassment for Jonah. Now, by the time Spider-Man eventually does find Boomerang, he's having himself a real breakdown. He talks about how much he respects Spider-Man now and how he doesn't want anyone else in his life to get hurt, and that the web-slinger could never understand because, well, Spider-Man just has his life together so well, it's clear for everyone to see. Naturally, we as the reader know that's not true at all, and it's here that Nick Spencer really manages to hit on a really poignant note, and that is that Peter sees Fred more or less the same way everyone else sees him. They are kindred spirits, brothers in their own sense. And just to really end up hitting that point home, Spider-Man and Boomerang team up to take on the old superior foes of Spider-Man, now redubbed the Boomerang Revenge Society. Of course, this victory still may end up being kind of hollow. Sure, Spider-Man and Boomerang managed to get the last piece of the Lifeline tablet away from Fisk, but unless they can get all the other pieces, then this whole mission is going to be for naught. Luckily, though, Peter took his earlier lesson about asking for help to heart, and because of that, he already called in a favor from Black Cat. In fact, there's a whole backup story in this issue about the new Black Cat book. Felicia had managed to sneak inside Wilson Fisk's camp by pretending to be an advisor, and when he wasn't looking, she grabbed the rest of the Lifeline tablet pieces. And with all the shards finally united, a spirit of the Lumerian reveals themselves to Spider-Man and Boomerang, saying that if they want to tap into the true power of the tablet, they need only pass one final test. A test not of strength or cunning, but a test of character. Basically, the only way you'll be able to unlock the Lifeline tablet is if you're truly pure of heart. And if you're not pure of heart and try and use the lifeline tablet, you'll die. Fred rushes ahead to try and use the tablet, but Spider-Man ends up stopping him. He cares about his new friend a whole lot and respects how far he's come as a human being, but at the same time, when it's an issue of life or death, Spider-Man figures he should probably do this one on his own. In fact, before he makes this big final jump, Spider-Man begins to think about how he's been acting recently and his own morality. Especially when it comes to the subject of money. After all, Spider-Man quite famously let the cat burglar go all those years ago because, hey, it wasn't his money he was taking. Now he works for Threats and Menaces, selling himself instead of selling pictures, but the whole thing just doesn't feel right, just like the costume didn't feel right, which is why Spider-Man decides to go back to the oh-so-classic red and blue. And hey, wouldn't you know it, that just so happened to be the test of character that the Lumerian was looking for, and as such, Spider-Man gains the final tablet and unlocks its power. So yeah, all in all, the day is saved and it's time for celebration, right? Only it's not. It's only at that very moment does Spider-Man realize that Boomerang and the superior foes aren't where he left them. And that would be because they were waiting for Spider-Man to unlock the tablet so they could jump him from behind. Yes, that's right, everyone. Boomerang, Spider-Man's brand new friend, was waiting in the wing so he could screw him over and take the tablet, which he does. In fact, he probably would have drowned too were it not for Black Cat doubling back to save him. When he comes to, it turns out that Fred left him yet another little letter detailing all the hows and whys. Boomerang says how this was all a work from the start. In fact, he was actively hired by the Kingpin to find out where the Lifeline tablet was being hidden by that architect. Only when the guy died and imprinted the secrets of where to find the tablet on Fred, that was not part of the plan and why the Kingpin ended up turning on him like he did. This also means that Fred knew the secret that the tablet could only be activated by someone pure of heart before anyone else, which is exactly why he cozied up to Peter Parker in hopes of cozying up to Spider-Man, someone that he knew was pure of heart. It was the greatest, most complex scheme any D-list loser villain ever pulled, and it makes him an absolute hero in the underworld who takes him back with open arms. The only problem is, Fred wasn't lying most of the time. He really did like Peter. They really were spiritual brothers, and yet all the same, he stabbed him in the back just to get one over on him because, well, that's what Fred is. He got everything he wanted, but lost a true friend along the way. And speaking of gaining things, Wilson Fisk now officially has all the pieces of the Lifeline tablet. Spider-Man and the rest of the Avengers figure, hey, what's the worst that could possibly happen with it, right? He's just gonna bring his wife back from the dead. That's not exactly the most evil thing someone could do. But wait a minute, here's the twist. You see, Kingpin's search for the Lifeline tablet and his run-in with Kindred ended up completely changing his mind. You see, Kindred told him that he could bring his wife back if he really wants, but at the end of the day, is that what she wants, or will she only be reborn to hate him all over again? After all, Vanessa quite famously killed their son in a move to try and benefit Wilson, which means that if Kingpin really wants to try and do right by his wife, he'll try and wipe away her greatest sin. Which he does by using the power of the Lifeline tablet to resurrect their son Richard Fisk. That's right, everyone, the rose blooms again as the comic comes to a close. And so that was giant-size Spider-Man King's Ransom issue number 1, everybody, and overall I thought it was a satisfying conclusion to several different storylines that have been ongoing in Spencer's Spider-Man run. And while the sense of completion is certainly nice, I would be lying if I said despite the extra length, a lot of these storylines got wrapped up really quickly and I would have liked them to have more time to breathe on their own. Spider-Man reconnects with the rest of the superhero community, but it seems like they weren't exactly mad at him anyway or believing Fisk as much as they let on early on. I can only hope this means we'll see more superhero crossover in later stories in this run. Jameson's new hubris blows up in his face, but again, it happens so quickly, and I actually think the whole pro-Spider Slayers could easily have been a story on their own. Maybe the next stage of his development will finally be reconciling with Robbie and maybe coming back to the Daily Bugle at some point. Boomerang's betrayal and the genius plan that went along with it was indeed unexpected. And it brings his arc from superior foes full circle in a way that I certainly appreciate as a fan of that series, but I cannot help but feel that the betrayal really should have also had its own issue devoted to it as well. Bringing the Rose back is also a rather interesting choice. I cannot help but get the feeling that Spencer is a fan of the character and wouldn't bring them back willy-nilly unless he had a plan for them. The art in this finale is also a lot better and a lot more consistent than what we've been getting in the main Spider-Man title right now, so I give a big thumbs up for that. Overall, a lot of stuff certainly happened, and there's going to be major repercussions for the rest of the Spencer run, but I just cannot help but feel that all of this was missing a certain je ne sais quoi. Maybe the problem with having so many big impactful moments back to back is that eventually you're just going to end up undercutting yourself, which I cannot help but feel is what happened here. Ultimately, though, I would give this one a 7.5 out of 10.
Hey there everyone, Cape Joel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out all this and more down in the description. And until next time everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.